Hello and welcome back, everybody, to episode 18 of Insurance Isn't Boring. Xander Wolle here, as always, joined by my lovely co-host, Mr. Elijah Corujo. Looking a little bit like Alex Hermosi today with his nose strip on. How you doing, man? You having a good week?
Dude, I'm breathing at 100% capacity right now, so I'm firing on all cylinders, man. Feeling good. Feeling good.
We were talking before this, Elijah's like, it's like I got an air conditioner just going right into my nose. Because that's a little bit of a different kind of nose strip. You wanna plug
Yeah,
them?
sure. They're not sponsoring us, but go get you an intake breathing nose strip. If you are a mouth breather, okay, I'm talking to you. Go get you one. They're like $30 for a 4-pack, and you get a month's worth of strips. There's little magnets right here that stick to the side of your face, and then you put this thing on, and boom, 100% oxygen. You'll feel
Opens
amazing,
you
and
right up.
you'll sleep really good too, man.
Yeah. All about
But yeah,
maximizing sleep. Hey, we're in the insurance industry, right? We gotta make sure our own health is dialed in.
it's true. It's true.
Um,
Hard to work when you can't breathe.
Very hard. Very hard. So we got a couple things on the docket for today. I guess first and foremost, we always start with a little bit of street cred. I know you've been having a great week, brother. What are you at?
Dude, I'm having a great week every week. It's hard to fail when you run 15 appointments a week. That's the key. Now I'm only at 13 so far, so I still got some work to do. But I'm at 12 sales, $16,700 in premium. Three of those policies were rewrites. Okay. Had a couple people lie to me about their health. One guy thought I wouldn't find out that he's actually a smoker and thought that the insurance company wouldn't know that he had a DUI. So he did not get approved for term, and we had to go with whole life instead. Um, but yeah, 16 grand, almost 17, 12 policies. It's only Friday, dude.
You're smoking me this week. I've only written three, had really big APV on one of them. I'm at 8460 on the week.
Pretty good.
I'll take it, right? I think the numbers owed me a little bit. I honestly, the last like 2 months or so, for the amount of appointments I was running and my lead investment, the APV was a little lower than it should have been. Um,
Mm,
but we always talk about just keep putting one foot in front of the other. My activity has actually been lower the last 2 weeks as my teams continue to grow. I actually hired an admin today. Um,
nice.
sorry, my director of operations. And so that's going to buy me some time back. But hey, that's the beautiful thing. You pay the numbers will pay you. So pretty
Mm.
cool to see that.
And a little bit of street cred on you, man. You were what, the number three or number four key leader in our company last week?
That was
In the
cool.
whole
Yeah.
company, dude. You're doing agency owner numbers. What'd you guys do last week as a team? It was over 25 grand, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I believe it was 26 and change, which
That's
was,
amazing.
I mean, that's shout out to all the incredible individuals on my team. And I mean, you've been a great help with that too. Like we've said it on previous episodes, right? We hang out together. And like I've heard it time and time again over the last month or so of like I have learned more in the last few weeks of just being around the fire this much than I had in the previous multiple months combined. I'm just loving the culture, getting to hang out with everybody.
Engagement's the name of the game. Getting your people plugged into where they don't feel like they're on an island. This business can be lonely. I've put myself on an island before, and it's not as fun. Not as fun.
No,
Way
it's not.
harder when you're doing it by yourself. And so you're duplicating yourself. We say in symmetry, there's different levels of leadership, right? So key leaders and team leaders are like the Lego building blocks of symmetry. And it's like a stair stepper up to agency owner. And agency owners where it starts to get fun. And that's really where the journey starts. And you'll probably be an AO in the next 90 days, dude, if you keep doing what you're doing. It'd be hard to not hit it at this point.
That's the plan. We had 6 writers in the first week. So writers was not
Yeah.
going to be an issue. We just got to make sure that everything gets issued, which also shouldn't be a problem. I'm writing 30K a month on my own. So we just need, writers. And
What are we digging into, bro?
well, we had a couple of things, right? I think metrics, we honestly kind of led right into metrics with, me talking about paying the numbers, but want to talk about metrics a little bit. Digital leads. We've gotten a lot of requests, and we have another someone we've shouted out before that we're going to shout out again because she is just kicking tail, like kicking tail in every sense of the word. And digital leads are a little bit different than kind of analog leads, the mailers that everyone's accustomed to. But a lot of great value there. That's actually where my biggest policy this week came from. Um, Actually, I was wrong. I've had 4 apps this week. And
Nice.
then after that, we want to get a little tactical with it and kind of look at how we run appointments, walk everybody through it. You want to put up the same numbers. Like, it's really not that hard. We always say this business is super simple. Doesn't make it easy, but it is real simple. Um,
Mhm.
so I guess let's start with metrics, man. Like,
Yeah.
you know, we, I hear a lot of agents, and I've been one of them who, you're looking at your numbers, you're like, wanted more APV this week, wanted to help more people. And I didn't get there. And then you go do some of that backwards math, and it's like, well, I didn't put myself in a position to help more families, right? I only ran 5 appointments. I only got 2 apps this week, Elijah. Like, what's going on? Well, that's to be expected, right? You should be expecting to close about 50% of them, which is why we say 12 to 15 appointments as a full time agent. You're going to close between 7 and 10. And that's where your real profitability is going to kick in. Um, I guess, is there anything on metrics that like is really common that you see?
There's not a whole lot we can control in this life. You can't control other people. You can't control what happened yesterday, but you can control your activity and how you respond. And so when we talk about metrics, when you're working in a commission based environment like this, it can be a little bit scary to take the leap and go full time if you don't know, am I going to make money this week? And metrics are kind of like the predictable recipe that if you follow, you're going to get the results that you want. And so if you're part time, we teach people to run a minimum of 8 appointments per week. Should take you about 15 hours total, including dialing to book those appointments. And so to run 8, you probably need to book 10 or 12 because you're going to have some no show, some people cancel, what have you. And if you run 8, Xander, you're going to write 2 to 4 policies every week. If you're average, you may get lucky and close all 8, but that's not predictable and it doesn't always happen. And so if you're part time, 8 appointments is your minimum target. And if you do that, you're going to close 2 to 4 policies. If you're full time, the only difference, bro, between a full time agent and a part time agent is their commitment level, their schedule, and how many leads they're investing in. And so you're going to be working more and you're going to be investing in more leads so that you can run more appointments. And so the target's 15. You could run 12 to 15. I like just having 15 be the non negotiable because it's impossible to fail here. I've never seen anybody fail here running 15 appointments a week. I've seen a lot of people who say that they're full time and they run 9 or 10 appointments a week fail. But if you run 15, you're going to sell 6 to 8 policies. You might get lucky and write a little bit more, but 6 to 8 is the predictable metric for running 15. To get those though, you gotta the precursor to that is dials. And our minimum dial requirement is 250 dials per week, which takes you about 5 hours.
If that.
If that, yeah. We've got agents on our team who are making 800 plus dials in a week. And so to get the appointments that they need. But that's where it all starts. And if we're talking to an agent who's maybe having a bad week, or so they say, or their numbers aren't where they want to be, the first question we typically ask is how many appointments have you run? How many apps did you write? And how many leads did you get? Because that is the easiest thing that you can change that will affect the bottom line.
And we can reverse engineer it from there, right? Like, and we don't, it's impossible to do that if we aren't tracking our numbers. Like, I get it, hanging out in Excel and punching in, I made this many dials, I had this many booked, I had this many. It can feel a little bit, it's like, hey, I'm here to sell. I'm here to help families. But if we're not tracking it, it's really hard. What is it? You improve what you track. You can't,
Mhm.
if we're not measuring it, it's gonna be really hard to dial in on like where's the issue. Like, I have one agent, he sets a lot of appointments, but we looked at his numbers and we realized he's setting a lot of them like a week out. and he's getting a lot of no-shows. And it's like, well, there's our problem right there. We would not have known that if we hadn't seen, like, okay, this is how many he's booking. He's booking enough appointments to be sitting with 10 to 15 a week. Um, but they're so far out that we can't really we can't expect them to show up, right? People forget about it. Life gets in the way. And so super important to track that. And if you're listening to this and you're a symmetry agent and you're trying to figure out your lead order, that kind of gets into kind of our digital leads part of this conversation. But get with your upline. They have, again, a vested financial interest in your success, right? When you win, they win. It's a beautiful thing about the insurance industry. We don't have a course to sell you outside pre-licensing, which you have to take. Um, we don't have a $10,000 course to sell you. And so the way that it works, and I love, love, love the way this is structured, is your upline, they bring you in and they coach you up for free. For free. I'll say that again, for completely for free. Right. And then they get paid back only when you start seeing success. Think about where the incentives are there, right? You pay someone 10 grand to get in the door to learn how to do something. They already made their money. Like, they don't really care if you succeed or not. Whereas if someone's investing a bunch of time into you, they really want you to win, right? And then they get compensated for that on the back end. It's a beautiful, beautiful system.
We don't
But
make a dime till you make a dollar.
bingo, bingo. And again, that it would be out of whack if the upline was making as much as the agent or even more. Which, some companies are structured that way. Symmetry is not. Um, but I think we should speaking of leads, I think we should get into digital leads a bit because uh, we've talked about her before. I think it was last week, but Elizabeth Tracy, if you're listening to this, we are so excited for you. She has written close to 30,000, not this month, this week. This week, she has written close to 30,000 in business. Could not be happier for her. And it ties into the metrics. She ran 15 appointments last week and her APV was not quite where she wanted it to be. And I told her, I was like, get ready to be drowning in APV next week. I have a picture of that text message on my phone and
That's
I
so
couldn't help
sick.
but do a little bit of, I told you so last night. Um, but I'm just so excited for her. She made a small adjustment. She kept putting one foot in front of the other and it changes everything. I believe 23,000 of that is already issued. So again, cut that number in half. She's not at a starting contract. Let's pretend she was. Cut that number in half. That's about what she deposited. Life looks a little different when you're making $10,000 in a week,
That's so sick. All on digital leads. So
all
if
on
you're
digital
listening to
leads.
this and you're like, well, what the heck is a digital lead? Just to give you a little bit of background, it's a lead that's generated online. And so with our company, we have leads. We literally have people asking to buy insurance from us, which makes our job a heck of a lot easier. It also makes our income predictable. And we can generate leads a variety of ways. You've got analog leads, which are direct mail. The person filled it out by hand or called in. We've got digital, which is online. People saw an ad on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram about mortgage protection or life insurance, or they Googled it. They literally Googled mortgage protection, and Quility is one of the first things to pop up, and they filled out a request. And so with these leads, the thing I like about them is one, they couldn't be fresher. With our company and somebody fills out a digital lead, you're going to get that lead within, what would you say, Xander, like 5 minutes of the
Probably
person
less
filling it out?
than. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they all remember it. They all remember it. They're all seeking it out. And so these are people who are very interested. The intent is super duper high. These aren't people who got a letter in the mail a year ago. These are people who saw something online and they have a need and they filled it out, and we get in touch with them right away. And so we'll go over some tips on how to work them, what you can expect with them, and then we'll run into how to run an appointment, man. But
Heck yeah.
any like initial tips you'd give to people who are like they're creatures of habit. They don't want to
Yeah.
make a change because
Yeah.
they've been doing the same thing for months or years, and they're like, what I'm doing is working, and I don't want to pivot." What would you say to somebody like that who's on the fence about digital leads?
I would respond with a question. I'd be like, what do you think is higher intent, Elijah? I mean, obviously, if someone's putting some pen to paper and sticking something in the mail, like there's definitely intent there, right? But they didn't seek that out. they're reacting to something that they received. With digital leads, there's, the algorithms are pretty good. I used to work in AI. The algorithms are really good. And so they saw something or they were searching for something that then made mortgage protection pop up, or they sought us out independently on Google or something. What's higher intent in your mind? Someone who is searching for something and then gets in touch with us versus somebody who's responding to something that they received. I think for most people, that's a pretty hypothetical, or not hypothetical. I can't think of the word right now.
Rhetorical.
Rhetorical. It's a rhetorical question, right? Like obviously, the people reaching out, it's higher intent. Um, and I had a realization the other day when I was looking at, I can't remember, I was looking at a house or something, and I filled something out, and I had a phone call within 30 seconds. And I was like, this is me. Like I am generally the person on the other end of this phone call. And so the number one thing in my mind with digital leads is speed to lead is everything. When someone fills that out, they are expecting a phone call from us. And so that's the biggest difference, I think, is like, you get a batch of mail-in A leads, right? It's important to get in touch with them, but it's been in the mail. So like if you're 30 minutes late after you get it, they're not going to know, right? Versus someone who just filled out a form, they're still on Instagram or whatever, and they suddenly get a phone call from you. I think that is the number one thing that people miss the boat on. And kudos to Symmetry, they've actually just implemented a change where you can spread the leads out. Like I was working 40 for a little while, and I'll be honest, getting 40 leads between Friday at midnight and Monday at like 7 p.m., it's hard to work those while running appointments. Like I'd have appointments stacked all day Monday as more leads were coming in. And so I was not able, unless I told my appointment to like, hey, get on hold. And so I could book this other person, which I don't think that's going to go over too hot. Um, so Symmetry has it now structured so that you can spread it out. I'm doing 5 a day for 4 different days out of the week. Um, but yeah, speed to lead is everything for me. What other tips do you got, brother?
I think the main difference with how these are worked is with an analog lead, you're typically gonna just be calling these people. Back in the day when we were seeing people in person, if somebody didn't answer the phone and I tried calling them, I would literally roll up to their house, bro. I'd have the lead in hand and I was like, "Look, Xander, I've tried calling you 14 times, man. You don't pick up the phone, but it looks like you mailed in this postcard. Has anybody helped you?" And that worked a little bit, but it's not fun. It's not efficient. And so with digital leads, these people reached out online. And so we're going to call them, we're going to text them, and they'll even get emails from us. Now, I have yet to have a lead reply to an email, but a lot of them pick up the phone right away and a lot of them respond to text. And so I think the thing that holds agents back from making a change is they think that they're going to have to completely change their process. And you don't have to do that with digital leads. We run the exact same appointment. We're selling the same product. The only difference is how we communicate with those people. And so with a digital lead, you're not going to be hammering the phone, dialing them 15 times a day. You're not even going to be doing that in a week. You're going to reach out to maybe twice a day or maybe 3 times a day, every other day. And you don't want to scare these people off by bombarding them. And
Yeah.
so the texts are automated too, which is pretty cool. And so when somebody replies or when a lead gets submitted, they're going to get an automated text sent out to them that explains mortgage protection, that you're trying to get in touch with them. And then you can actually book that appointment over text, which is really cool. The main reason the main reason I got into digital initially was because I hated dialing, bro. I was just wanting to cut back on the amount of dials that I was making. And it doesn't replace the need to make phone calls. I mean, we're in
Yeah.
insurance. If you don't want to make phone calls, go get another job because you're just not going to make it here. And so you're going to have to make calls, but you're just not going to have to make as many. And that was the main reason I got into it. But as far as tips, um, speed to lead's the biggest one. I think the other thing is understanding that these people are shopping around. And so when you're calling an analog lead, you're going to get way more objections
Yeah.
than a digital lead.
Yeah.
And a digital lead is just much easier to book an appointment on. because you're not going to get people who say things like, I didn't fill that out. You're not going to get people saying things like, I don't remember doing that. Or I called in because I thought I had to. You're going to get people who, when you say your name, they know exactly what you're calling about. And it's just way easier to book appointments on these types of leads.
And people want ease. Like, I think that's what we like. Some of these people don't even want to get on the phone. They would love to just handle this over text. I've had a couple that have gone that way, and we've talked about that on the podcast before. But yes, spot on. Like, you got to remember, Symmetry isn't the only company sending out postcards, right? They probably, I've heard of people getting like a dozen. They're like, I keep getting these letters, and I'm just like, what's going on with this? So sometimes they're confused. With a digital lead, they know exactly what it is, that they have responded to, and they're expecting our help with it. And Symmetry takes the added step. I have yet to receive a bad number on a digital lead,
Me
maybe
too.
one, but very rare. Whereas if someone fills something out by hand, look, my handwriting sucks, dude. Um, like, it's possible I could fill it out and someone called the wrong number, and then that's a dead lead. Whereas with this, they've gotten a 6-digit code to their phone. They've put that back into the form, so we know that their information is correct. And then you just call them up. Again, they're not getting bombarded with postcards or phone calls from other agents, just the one. And dude, a lot of times these people have they've sought this out independently, right? And so I have some of the biggest case sizes with digital leads. I helped a guy, he has over a $500,000 mortgage the other day. The only place that I have seen that prior to that is in New Jersey. For whatever reason, mortgages in Jersey are real big. Um, and so I couldn't love digital leads more. You gotta know that you tweak the process a little bit. If you blow them up on the phone, you're probably gonna get blocked. You just gotta work them a little bit differently, but man, can it buy a lot of time back in your schedule.
Yeah. Yep. And I like diversification. Like over the last 6 years, there have been periods of time when direct mail was really down. People weren't buying as many houses, they weren't getting as many mortgages. There is zero issue fulfilling digital leads because all they have to do as a company is increase ad spend, and then they can market to even a more refined demographic of people based off of age, city, um, all of that. And so you can get leads in any state that you want, and you're never going to have trouble getting your lead order filled. And so, I mean, I do work some analog. We're not saying stop working analog. We're just saying if you incorporate these into your process, you're going to have really good results. And there's Elizabeth Tracy sold almost 30 grand this week. She might be over 30 grand by the end of the day today. And she's
Probably.
relatively new. Like she's not
Yeah.
even been here a year, and she's exclusively working digital leads. And that's not the only case, too. There's lots of people winning on these. Now 30 grand is abnormal. Okay. That doesn't happen all the time, but the numbers owed her. Last week, she got her butt kicked, didn't write as much premium. And just like you said, the numbers are about to pay you back. And I would say they paid her back tenfold. I mean, she's working what, 30 leads a week or something right now.
She's
Um,
she's going up to 30. But
okay. Not
only
even.
20 leads a week, dude. That's like
That's
not even that
crazy.
many.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. We're talking about like maybe a $600 or $700 lead investment.
ROI there is bananas.
It is.
And I should we tell people let's share our lead orders because I think that'd be helpful for others to
Yeah.
understand.
How many digital are you working? We'll focus on digital, but yeah.
Yeah. I was taking 15. I'm bumping that up to 20 because I can space it out now. Like I said, I was getting too many at once. I'm taking 20 digital leads a week. I'm taking 10 mail-in analog A leads a week, and I'm taking 15 mail-in B leads a week for whatever reason. They're just discounted A leads, right? Like some people, if you're listening to this and you work for Symmetry, call your A leads, right? Well, actually, maybe don't. You're going to make my life harder on the MIBs, but like some of these people have not been contacted yet, and they're waiting to be helped. So that's mine. I think we have pretty similar lead orders.
We do. It's almost identical. I'm taking 15 Lighthouse, which are the digital leads. I'm taking 15 MIA leads, so mail-in A leads. Those are the most expensive, freshest analog lead. And then I'm taking 15 mortgage protection B leads, which is just a discounted A lead that's a little bit older. Um, so yeah, that's
Yeah,
what I'm
pretty
doing, and
identical
that's my
there.
favorite lead mix that I've ever worked. and I've worked every lead type we have. Um,
I love the diversity.
Same. One thing about lighthouse leads or digital leads that I've noticed is these leads are more willing to give referrals than any other lead type. I don't know why, but these people are one looking for insurance, and they're not just trying to get a policy for themselves. They're trying to cover their whole household a lot of times. And so, whereas with an analog lead, you'll still get some referrals for sure, but I feel like they don't just offer them up like they do.
Yeah. And the other thing I like with digital leads is, again, they're reaching out to us. And so sometimes with analog leads, they they haven't even made the first mortgage payment yet. And so a fair and a common objection I get is like, dude, I don't know how much money is going to be left over at the end of each month. I don't get that all the time. And you certainly get the ones who, like, again, you couldn't screw it up if unless you called their mother overweight. Um, but a lot of the lighthouse leads, maybe they've had the house for a year or two. They know they need to get this done because they got all the postcards when they first moved in, and they just haven't done it yet. Like that was my exact situation on Wednesday. The guy's like, "Yeah, my wife's been on my ass. Like, I need to get this." Dude has a phenomenal income, but he did not have any protection in place, and his wife doesn't work. And so if something happens to him, this is their forever home. He wants to make sure she can keep it. Um, and it's just so beautiful when it's a situation like that. I'm like, okay, yeah, no problem. Show him the numbers. He's like, great, what's next? I'm like, well, we got to get you approved, my friend. Um, so I'm a big fan of the digital leads, but to your point, we're still both working analog leads because I love that diversity. There might be a week where the digital leads, for whatever reason, you got a bad batch, right? Jake talked about it. Happens with the A leads too. So if those aren't hitting 1 week, then great, you got your digitals. If both aren't working for whatever reason, awesome, you can hammer down on the bonus leads. Um, it's like a well balanced stock portfolio, right? There's going to be months, years where certain indices aren't performing as well as others. Great. That's why we have multiple. That's how I like to spread it out. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Couldn't agree more, man. Couldn't agree more. Real quick, how many states are you taking leads in, Xander?
Boy, I am taking leads in, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'm taking leads in 14 states. I'm licensed in 20 some, but there's 14 that I like to work.
I'm working 15. So we're right on there, man.
We didn't even plan that.
Yeah. I've got licenses up and down the East Coast and a handful out west, but I predominantly focus on the East Coast just because
I
time
like the
zone's the same.
Yeah, I like the ability to arbitrage time zones if you like. The thing I ran into is I keep all my uncontacted leads in one place. And I have a license in Washington and Colorado. Those are the two where I've made this mistake. I'm sitting down, it's first thing in the morning. I'm trying to set up my day or the next day, and I call someone and it's 6 a.m. their time. They're not too happy with me. And that is against TCPA guidelines, and so I cut those leads off because I'm trying to be compliant. I like to do everything above board, and so if you are working multiple time zones, just make sure you have your leads segregated like that, so you're not like me calling people, pissing them off at 6 in the morning. I don't care how big of a priority it is. Nobody wants to wake up to a call about buying something at 6 a.m.
That is a lot. Hard to come back from that.
Very hard.
So we've got metrics. We're plugging digital, which if you're not working digital, it's worth a try. One thing too, last thing I'll say about digital leads is these aren't a lead you can take for 1 week and then judge them. You
Mm-hmm.
gotta take them for a few weeks. A lot of people will make a change and then they'll immediately go back to what they were doing because 1 week went a certain way. You may get lucky your first week and write some policies, but these are a lead that take like 5 to 6 weeks to build up a pipeline. You're going to talk to some of these people, Xander, who haven't even bought their house yet. They're shopping around for mortgage protection beforehand because they're, again, super high intent. They're doing it ahead of time. And it may not be the best time to help them at that point. And so you're going to be filling up that pipeline. If you're going to take digital, I would recommend you take them for at least a month and a half, 2 months before you really judge them. And I found that to be true.
I've got a great example of that, dude. I had one that I got back in the beginning of February, and I just wrote them this last week. They were selling their old house, getting a new one. They wanted protection on the new house. A lot of moving parts. The sale of their old house fell through, so there less money coming in than they expected. And then randomly, I got a text on Monday, like, Xander, we're ready. Can you send us the e-signatures? And I'm like, golly, this is beautiful.
Isn't that
Um,
something?
Approved and paid by Wednesday. So try digital. Like Elijah said, I would also recommend don't take less than 10. 10 is really, if you can't do 10, don't do them yet. But if you take 10 for 3 to 6 weeks, I can, as long as you're working them effectively, I can all but guarantee that you're going to, at the very least, make your money back on the investment. And most likely you're going to be cash flowing pretty heavily. Maybe you'll be the next Elizabeth Tracy.
She's gonna need some competition because she's running circles around us.
Yeah, she's about to be a celebrity. I can only imagine that her phone has been blowing up from people like, "What are you
Oh,
doing?"
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's get into how to run appointments. We want to get a little tactical, give you guys some tips. We're not going to like run a mock appointment or anything like that. There's enough training on our site to plug into, but we wanted to kind of give you guys an outline and some tips and tricks on how to run a virtual appointment, and tell you guys what we're doing. Um, so, Xander, real quick, are you running your appointments over the phone, Zoom? Are you going to these people's houses? How are you doing it, man?
Lord, no, I'm not going to people's houses. I so I I'm gonna give you a longer answer than you asked for. When I first started, I did everything on Zoom for the first about 8 months. And by doing that, you learn a ton, right? You can see people's facial expressions, they can see you're a human being, and you can be honest with them, like, "Elijah, I'm pretty new to this, man." And so and that resonates with people, being a human being. Um, After you've done that for I'll say 6 months, you can start to almost hear things. Like when you hear someone say something a certain way, you kind of know what their face is looking like, what they're thinking. And I would say that that Zoom period is crucial if you want to move to phone appointments. I like phone appointments because it's lower barrier, right? Like I ran half an appointment on a guy yesterday. He didn't know what his existing coverage was. And so I stopped the appointment there. We're going to get back together on Monday when he actually knows what he's got, and we can do a full, like, rundown, apples to apples comparison. So I'm running everything over the phone these days. At the end of the appointment, when we go into the app, I use an app called Crankwheel. It shares my screen with them so they can still hear me over the phone and they can see what I'm doing. So when we get to the social or the banking, they don't think I'm just, writing this down so that I can rob them blind. I like them to see that, like, no, this is going to an insurance carrier. This is a real transaction here.
Crankwheel's a great resource if you're doing virtual. I'm doing everything over the phone. I've done Zoom. I think Zoom's amazing. With digital leads, I think these people want the easiest, simplest, friction-free interaction. And so a phone call typically works best. When I'm booking the appointment, I'll sometimes even ask, "Do you prefer we hop on a video chat call like Zoom, or would you rather me just give you a call?" Every single time, bro, without fail. They just want me to call them.
Yeah.
And
So I
so,
stopped asking that.
yep, me too, man. Me
Yeah.
too. So when it comes to running an appointment, um, a couple things. You want to have a cohesive outline and flow to your appointment. You don't want to run a different appointment every time you talk to these people.
No, don't do that.
You almost will sound robotic, Xander, where you're having the same conversation every time with a different lead.
Yeah.
And that's where you want to be,
Yeah.
because the solution set that we're solving is mortgage protection, which is pretty much the same for every single person. And
Simple.
so it's simple. It's a simple solution for a serious problem a lot of people have. And so when you're running an appointment, the framework that we follow is something called the REAL system. It stands for rapport, emotion, assumption, and locking it down. And the average appointment, if you're writing an application, will take you about an hour, maybe a little longer. And if you're super quick, Speedy Gonzalez, you might be running that appointment and writing an app in 40 minutes, maybe. But on average, it takes us about an hour. And if you're not writing the application and you're not making the sale, typically you're on and off the phone in about 15 or 20 minutes. So it's not that long. Um, but Xander, let's talk about rapport real quick, and then we'll dig into some emotion. What's the importance of building rapport, and how do you build rapport with a different person every time. I mean, we're doing 15 appointments a week. What does that first step kind of look like when you're having a conversation with these people?
I've gone through multiple stages of rapport building in my time here. So when I first started, I was doing the classic, how's the weather? What are your kids' names? What school do they go to? Trying to find, common ground. I was spending way too much time doing that, like 10, 15 minutes. Like, as you're saying, we should be, if we're not writing an app, we should be done with the conversation by then. Um, I think that builds a ton of sales resistance. Now, everybody looks a little bit different, and every appointment is a little bit different. If you have someone who wants to be a chatty Cathy at the beginning, like, don't cut them off. Um, However, I think it's important to be friendly, but not only there to make a friend. If you're there, you
Good.
get stuck in follow up purgatory where they're just like, yeah, I love you, Elijah. I'm just going to give you a call back. I need to talk to the wife about this. And it's like, well, that's not really the outcome we were looking for. Uh, so then I shifted and I was doing a little bit less rapport. Currently, I build rapport throughout the call. So I get on, remind them, hey, this is what we're talking about. What was your main concern? And then I get down to business because, again, with these lighthouse leads in particular, they're looking for streamlined. And so I'll build rapport throughout the conversation, right? Talking about their health. Elijah, you decided to make my life easy on me today. I love saying that when someone's real healthy. Um, when we get into the FIF part of things, like whatever their job is, I'll make a comment about their job if they've been there for a while. Oh, that's quite some tenure. Do you like it over there? Um, I like to do it throughout the call because then it feels more natural for me. And this is unfortunately something that you're going to get with experience. I'd love to hear your take on this, but I've just found the longer I've done it, the more I can recognize personalities. Okay, this person wants to chat a little bit more. I'll lean into that. Hey, this person wants to get right down to business. So do I. Let's go into it there and I'll build it throughout. How do you think about rapport?
You know, I do pretty much the same thing as you. When we talk about rapport, the purpose of it is building trust and making sure that they like you. People don't buy from people that they don't trust or don't like. And if you get on the phone and within the first 3 minutes, you're already trying to go over options, I can almost guarantee you're going to get to think about it because they don't know you. They don't like
Yeah.
you. They don't trust you.
Yep.
And so I typically spend around 5 minutes building some rapport, chit chatting. I will sometimes pull the weather card if they're not like overly talkative. But most of the time, I'm asking them, "How's your day going? How's your week going?" I'll get a couple questions like, "How long have they lived there? Did they just buy the home? Did they like their neighborhood? What do they do for work? Are their grandkids living nearby?" Stuff like that. They'll ask me some questions. Sometimes I'll mention that I've got dogs, and if they hear any crazy barking going on, it's because the my dog Maverick sees somebody dropping off a package, and that typically will precipitate them asking, "Oh, what kind of dog do you have?" And we'll just kind of talk about pets for a little bit. And so the purpose of it is to you don't want to come off like a salesman. And building a little bit of rapport is good, but also we're not there to just make a friend and talk about nothing for 30 minutes. We're here to help your family get protected.
You got to walk that line.
Yep.
And I think that comes with experience running a lot of appointments. How do you, do you feel similarly about that?
Yeah, I kind of got smacked around a little bit the first time I worked leads in New Jersey because I had a couple people in New Jersey. Love them, man. Those people are awesome. They don't give a rat's tail about what's going on in your day or the weather. Okay,
Yeah.
they're there to down to do business, and
Yeah.
I literally had some people because I was taking leads in Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida. Those are the chatty, friendly, Southern people who are way more friendly. People in New Jersey, they're like, "All right, how does this work? What does it cost? What do we need to do?" And I had a couple people literally shut me down trying to build a rapport initially, and they're like, "Why are you asking me all this? Well, I thought we were here to get insurance taken care of." And I was like, "Oh, okay.
I can do
Heard.
that
Let's
too. Yeah.
yeah, let's jump in." And so you gotta know the people you're talking to. And if you're talking to somebody who's older and they don't talk to a ton of people, you may want to spend more time on rapport. If you're talking to somebody who is a professional, they're working, they just got home from work, you shouldn't be spending 20 minutes talking about nothing. You should be respectful of their time and kind of get down to it. Um, so that's rapport. We don't have a script for it. If you have a script for rapport, you're not going to sound genuine. And so
Right.
you want to be
Be a human
authentic.
being is my best advice. Just be a human. Pretend you're at a dinner with some new people, or if you like drinking, pretend you're at the bar and you're just, hey, how's it going? And just have a conversation. Like that's you said it best. People buy from people they like. So just be
Yep.
likable.
Yep.
And show a genuine interest in things they say. Like if they're like, oh, I'm so excited for my daughter. She just got her driver's license. Oh, that's exciting. Like lean into those things, right? They're giving it to you. You don't have to manufacture rapport. Just be a little chatty sometimes. Um, and in the states where they like to get down to business, do that because that's what they want. Like we're here to give people what they want or at the end of the day, right?
Mm, well said. Next step is emotion. And this is, in my opinion, the most important section. This is, I think this is where people buy is in the emotional E section of the real system. And so insurance is an emotional purchase. What they're buying isn't necessarily going to do anything for them. They're buying it for what it's going to do for their loved ones when they pass away. And so if you gloss over this or if you rush through this, you're probably going to get to think about it.
You don't got
And
anything.
so
Yeah.
we want to give you guys a few questions to ask in the E section of the real system. I said we were going to get tactical. Let's get like super tactical here. What questions do you ask Xander to build emotion and uncover the need?
I want to make sure there's a need first. So I really build the emotion after we've gone through all their finances. What's their job? How much are they making each month? What's their monthly mortgage payment? What do they have? Do they have any insurance already? If they do, what is it? Um, and is there anything that could act in lieu of insurance? 401k, Roth, annuity, CD, anything like that? And then I keep it simple. I'm like, all right, so Elijah, I got a better view of the picture here. I mean, you tell me, man, like, God forbid something happens to you, what's Maggie's plan? Like, how long could she afford to stay in this house on her own without your income coming in? How are you thinking about that? And then I sit back and, dude, half the time people are like, "That's a good question. I don't think we have one." And I'm like, "Well, here's 3 ways that I see people think about it." And it leads right into it. Or they're like, "Yeah, she would be screwed. She
Mm.
would not be she'd have to move to the basement, rent out the rest of the home, or try and figure out how to sell it to get that equity out." And it's like, "Okay, and we don't want that, do we?" And they're like, "No, that's why we're talking." And so I like to keep it really simple. Um, how about you? I know you're real good with the emotional questions.
I've done the most work in training on the E section, and I want to plug Jeremy Miner real quick because everything that I do, I learned from his training, his sales training on neuro emotional persuasive questioning, NEPQ. And so if you're in sales, go check out his stuff. Phenomenal. But I have a few things. The first thing I do is I have some connecting questions. An example of a connecting question is what motivated you to look into mortgage protection? What was kind of your main concern? One thing that I'll ask is, Xander, I'm not really sure you need this coverage. Like, what has you looking at this now? I like we call this situation questions. You ask this: what current life insurance policies do you have in place? To get assess their situation, assess their need. We have what's called problem awareness questions. So, have you considered how your family would be or cope financially if something happened? How long could your wife afford to stay in the home without this coverage? We have one of the questions I love asking is how long have you been thinking about getting this coverage? I asked a lady that this morning who I wrote a little small policy on, and she's like, I've been thinking about getting this for 2 years. And I was like, wow, it's a long time. Have you met with somebody before? Like what happened with that? And I'll ask, have you have you known anybody where something happened to them and they didn't have this coverage? That's another one that I look at. Or why was my favorite one to ask is why was getting this coverage important to you? Very straight up. And they'll say something along the lines of, "Well, Elijah, I wanted to make sure that if something happened to me, my family is not going to lose the home." And a lot of times people have life insurance already.
Yeah.
They're just looking for a separate policy to take care of the home. That way, the life insurance can go directly to their family. So you've got connecting questions, you've got situation questions to analyze a need, you've got problem awareness questions because at the end of the day, sales is helping people solve a problem, and you're not doing it for them. You're helping reveal a solution and then a call to action. And that's where
Right.
the problem awareness and solution questions go hand in hand. You've got consequence questions, which is painting the picture of what if we don't do this and something happens? What does life look like? How long could your wife afford to stay in the home if something were to
Yeah.
happen to you?
I
Um,
love all of those. And the one thing I want to point out to anyone listening, if you're listening closely, those are all fairly assumptive questions, which leads right into the third part of the real system, which is assuming the sale, right?
mhm,
You're assuming that they need that they're on this call with us. They filled out the form, they booked an appointment with you, and they're on the call. There's probably a need here. Probably. If they don't, we'll let them know. But every single one of those questions is kind of assuming like, okay, like but why? We want to dig a little bit deeper, get the emotion, but then we've already assumed the sale. And so as soon as they tell us that, it's like, that makes a lot of sense, Elijah.
mm,
Well, let me just walk you through. There's really three ways you could think about that. And then you're right into presenting options.
yep,
And I just love the system. I don't know who came up with the real system, but it's a great one.
probably Casey Watkins. We'll have to get him on the podcast here soon. I stole this from Jeremy Miner. He said, "Off the record, why was putting coverage in place important for your family?" And that's the question where whenever they answer that, that's pretty much when they bought. Then you're just going over the different types and finding something that fits their budget. And so when we talk about mortgage protection, we're not going to go too deep into this just because there's, like I said, tons of training on our site about it. But we explain the three types of mortgage protection, which is a full mortgage payoff, partial payoff, and equity protection, or I like to call it mortgage payment protection. And you've already identified the problem in the E section. The assumption is now showing solutions to that problem and going over pricing. And my favorite question to ask when we go over the three types and we give them their pricing, my favorite question is, well, which one, Xander, fits yours and Maya's needs and budget best? And then you want to shut up
Yeah.
and let them talk. Because at this point, you've done a majority of the talking and asking questions, and now you're letting them pick. Do you do anything different there?
That's my favorite question to ask. And, people will sometimes they'll go down tangents. Maybe they have a question about how it works. And so I'll answer the question and then I'll come right back to that. Okay, Elijah. So of these three, man, like which one sounds like it's going to give you the peace of mind you're looking for? And equally importantly, fit the budget, right? We can get you the best coverage in the world, but if it's going to put a stretch on the monthly activities, it's not really doing anybody a whole lot of good. I always circle back to that. And then if I do get to think about it, I'll be like, okay, I mean, I want to give you something to think about, right? All these are hypothetical until the carrier comes back and says, yes, we'll approve you, Elijah. Good
Mm,
news is if you get approved for one, you're going to get approved for all of them. Let me just get that application pulled up. Again, we do want to apply for something that would make sense here. So of the three, like which one sounds like I just keep saying it until they're like, yeah, Xander, that second one, I think we could swing that. It would fit in the budget. And having 2 years worth of mortgage payments, I think that would really put me at ease.
yeah. I think amateur salesmen focus on features. They focus on what the policy comes with. I think professionals sell an outcome, in this case, peace of mind. And that's what causes people to really make a decision is the outcome of what will happen now that we've put this coverage in place. One thing that I want to give you guys a tip on is we don't ask permission to then pivot to the application. If you get into the habit of asking somebody, well, okay, do you want to go ahead and apply now? Most of the time, I mean, you may get some people who say yes, but most of the time you're going to be like, well, no, I need to talk about it, pray about it, talk to my dog about it. before we fill out an app. We're very assumptive, and when they pick their plan, that's you just closed it. Now you
Yeah,
just got to fill out the paperwork, man, and
right.
just pivot to the application. Take some confidence and posture to do that.
And one of the best examples of that is actually a newer agent on my team, Wes. If you're listening to this, brother, you're very good at this. And I watched him yesterday. The guy was kind of wishy-washy. Wes was like, "I don't care. What's your middle initial, Elijah?" And he just went right into the app. Incredible. And the guy didn't even realize they were filling out an application, which is really how you want it to be. You don't want them to feel like this is a big thing they're doing. We want to make sure they know it's important. But like if you make the sale feel too salesy, suddenly you're just a salesperson as opposed to a friend helping them with something. Um, and I loved what you said. It's an Alex Hormozy line. Sell the vacation. Sell the vacation. You, if you're talking to someone about a big trip they're taking to Hawaii, right? Are you going to say, okay, so here's what you're going to do, Elijah. You're going to wake up at 6 a.m. You're going to double check that you packed everything. You're going to get your wife and your kids in the car. You're going to drive to security, right? Security line's long. You might wait an hour and a half to get through security. Then you're gonna have to take your shoes off. You're going to get through that. You're going to shuffle to the gate. You're going to get on the first flight. You're zone 4, so you're going to have to watch everybody board before you. And then you're not going to have a spot to put your bag in the overhead compartment, so they might have to gate check it. Then you're going to get to your first layover. Then you're going to get off. No one's buying that vacation. But if you instead you focus on Hawaii is paradise, okay? The whitest sand beaches you've ever seen. You're going to be able to kick back, relax, have a mojito. Your kids are going to be building sand castles. You're going to get to hang out on a beach chair, get some vitamin D with your whole family. Like that's what we want to focus on. Sell the vacation. All the other stuff is details, right?
So good, dude. I can't add anything to that, man. Can't,
Well, I stole
can't
it from
add.
Hormozy. He's pretty good at what he does.
I would have to agree. That dude's a gangster when it comes to sales. So when you've gotten to the application, you want to be assumptive. And that comes with posture and confidence that at this point, keep in mind, these people filled out a lead. Okay. They booked an appointment with a stranger. They showed up to that appointment. They told you why they need it. They told you which one fits their need and their budget. Now you just got to fill out the application. You've already gotten like 5 or 6 micro agreements and yeses. They didn't go through all of those hoops just to get a price. These people are interested. And when I was newer, I would approach my work week, Xander, almost wondering, am I going to close something this week? And now it's completely different. There's no question. It's just a matter of how many families am I going to help? And I have a lot of control over that by how many appointments I run. It comes back to the metrics.
Full circle.
Full circle, baby. And so locking it down is where you affirm the decision they made. Whenever a client picks their plan, I just say, you know what, that's a great plan. I like that one. If you like that one, the only thing I want to make sure, Xander, is this plan is something you know you can be comfortable with, not something you think you can manage. We don't want to get a bunch of chargebacks, y'all, selling policies that the client can't afford to pay. I would much rather them get a smaller policy that they know they can afford in writing business that sticks. And so when we approach sales, at the end of the day, we're here to help families. We're not twisting people's arms. We're not doing boiler room hard sale tactics. It's consultative. We're
Yeah.
asking questions, we're identifying a problem, we're showing solutions, and then we're just helping them solve it.
Yeah.
And that's really all we do, man.
And when it's done right, I would venture to say it doesn't even really feel like a sale. Like
Doesn't.
they're thanking you. They are thanking you and they're telling you how much peace of mind it's going to give them. And that really ties into the last part of locking it down. So kind of at the end, right? We submitted the application. Carrier might be thinking about it. Best case, they got instantly approved. I make the joke all the time. My firstborn, I'm going to try and figure out issued as or approved as applied into their name. It's going to be a hard one to make happen. How do you lock it down, brother?
I let them know if anybody else calls them, tell them I already got them taken care of. I like to make sure they know that I'm accessible. So if they have questions, if they want to review the policy, reach out to me. And then one of the questions I ask is, who in your family needs to have a conversation like this? Is there anybody that you know who either doesn't have insurance or doesn't have enough or just bought a home that would benefit from having a conversation like this to make sure we get their family protected? And the goal for me is to cover the whole household. Doesn't always work out that way. Some people just need one or two policies, but a lot of times I'm covering husband, wife, kids, and their family too. And so that's the way I lock it down because if you write multiple apps in the home, you're way less likely to get a chargeback.
Right, what do they cancel all 4? Yeah, right. Um, I took this straight from Symmetry. I need to get better at asking for referrals, to be completely honest. Transparent, moment of vulnerability to anybody listening. Ask, because if you did a good job, it doesn't feel like you're just asking for more business. In fact, my favorite is when someone offers it to you. They're like, "Man, dude, you did such a good job. Like, I'm gonna tell anybody I run across that needs this to get in touch with you. Is this the best number for me to give them?" I'm like, "Heck yeah, it is." And I appreciate that. Um, I like to make sure they understand exactly what we did. So we submit the application. I'm like, all right, Elijah, now I know we've been on the phone for a minute. I'll get out of your hair. But before I do, I take a lot of pride in making the right recommendations to the families and the individuals that I meet with. So I just want to hear in your own words what it was we did here today. And, sometimes they weren't. My favorite is when they're like, yeah, if something happens to me, this can pay the house off for my wife. If they have something with living benefits, I'm like, yes, absolutely to that first part. And also remember, God forbid you get disabled or sick or something, it's actually going to protect you while you're still living. You can access these funds while you're still alive. But my favorite joke to make is when they say it perfectly. I'm like, Elijah, you could do my job, man. Yeah, that's exactly what this will do. I'm going to be bothering the carrier to make sure that they're working diligently on this. And then as soon as I hear something, I'll reach out to you. And we'll just take it from there.
Easy as that, man. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate this. Stick to the metrics. Digital leads are freaking awesome. And running an appointment is as simple as building rapport, establishing emotion, having assumption that you're going to close an application, and then locking it down and affirming the decision they made and how we're solving that problem. And if you do that week in and week out, man, you're not going to be worried about money and you're going to help a whole bunch of families, dude. But we wanted to give you guys some practical how to, a little bit more tactical on this episode. And so let us know what you think in the comments. And then, hey, on your next sale, tag us, post about it on social media, tag insurance isn't boring, and apply what you learned today. Might change your week.
Heck yeah. Couldn't put it better. Thank you everybody for tuning in. And Elijah, I'll see you later, brother.
See you next week.